Esther, where are you? Your mother is calling for you. Oh, my Esther, where are you? Your mother is calling for you. The skies are darkening, the desert is cold. Gone is my baby, just 6 months old. The skies are darkening, the desert's so cold. Gone is my baby, just 6 months old. I cannot find him, my little prince. Come, your mother is calling for you. Oh, my Esther, oh, my Esther, where are you? Come, your mother is calling for you. Oh, my Esther, where are you? Come, your mother is calling for you. You were so thirsty, your tongue was so dry. We couldn't fetch you water, though we did try. You were so thirsty, your tongue was so dry. We couldn't fetch you water, though we did try. Is your thirst quenched now, oh beloved one? Come, your mother is calling for you. Oh, my Esther, oh, my Esther, where are you? Come, your mother is calling for you. Oh, my Esther, where are you? Come, your mother is calling for you. When Hormala aimed his arrow at you, did he know that he would hurt me too? When Hormala aimed his arrow at you, did he know that he would hurt me too? My heart is broken, oh, where are you? Come, your mother is calling for you. Oh, my Esther, oh, my Esther, where are you? Come, your mother is calling for you. Oh, my Esther, where are you? Come, your mother is calling for you. My lap is empty now, your cradle is bare. I cannot find you anywhere. My lap is empty now, your cradle is bare. I cannot find you anywhere. Who will I rock now, my precious son? Come, your mother is calling for you. Oh, my Esther, oh, my Esther, where are you? Come, your mother is calling for you. Oh, my Esther, where are you? Come, your mother is calling for you. How can I leave you in Karbala, the youngest martyr on Ashura? How can I leave you in Karbala, the youngest martyr on Ashura? How can my baby sleep in the sand? Come, your mother is calling for you. Oh, my Esther, oh, my my Asghar, where are you? Your mother is calling for you. Oh, my Asghar, where are you? Come, your mother is calling for you. How can I go back to Medina? What will I say to your sister Subhara? How can I go back to Medina? What will I say to your sister Subhara? What will I do now? My husband is gone. Your mother is calling for you. Oh, my Asghar. Oh, my Asghar, where are you? Your mother is calling for you. Oh, my Asghar, where are you? Your mother is calling for you. ढलवा गया सूरज शम्मा जली नन्हा मेरा असगर कहाँ गया रे नन्हा मेरा असगर कहाँ गया रे सवाल
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
برائے خوشنودی امام زمانہ بلند تر صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. क्या अंधेरा है पुपी, क्या अंधेरा है पुपी, कैद खाने में सकीना का थनौहा है पुपी, क्या अंधेरा है पुपी, क्या अंधेरा है पुपी. एक शमा मंगवाइए के हो जाना ऐ पुपी, क्या अंधेरा है पुपी, क्या अंधेरा है पुपी. गोद में अपनी छुपा लो, दिल धड़कता है मेरा, हर घड़ी लगता है जैसे शिम्र फिर से आ गया, पास से मेरे नहीं जाना खुदारा ऐ पुपी, क्या अंधेरा है पुपी, क्या अंधेरा है पुपी. खौफ आता है पुपी दिन के उजाले में, यहाँ वहशते ही वहशते हैं कैद खाने में, यहाँ एक पल लगता नहीं है दिल हमारा ऐ पुपी, क्या अंधेरा है पुपी, क्या अंधेरा है पुपी. अब कहाँ बाबा का सीना, चैन की रातें कहाँ, अब कहाँ के वो दिन दोबारा ऐ पुपी क्या तेरा है पुपी क्या तेरा है पुपी। हाँ भी कुछ देर पहले मुझको नींद आई तो थी चंद लम्हों बाद फिर से आँख मेरी खुल गई यूं लगा जैसे हो बाबा ने पुकारा ऐ पुपी क्या तेरा है पुपी क्या तेरा है पुपी। आय बाबा तो सुनाऊं मैं सितम की दास्तां मैं दिखाऊं की रस्म के और तमाचों के निशान सुन नहीं पाएंगे बाबा हाल सारा ऐ पुपी क्या तेरा है पुपी क्या तेरा है पुपी। कैद खाने में सकीना का खनौहा ऐ पुपी क्या तेरा है पुपी क्या तेरा है पुपी।
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى
حبيب خدا المنبيا محمد مصطفى بوازع بلند الصلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
نارے حیدری
يا علي
نارے حیدری
يا علي.
فاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ويا مولاي يا رسول الله وعلى بيتك المعصومين الأبرار الميامين المظلومين المضطهدين. السلام عليك وعلى ولدك المصطفى أبي عبد الله الحسين يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة يا غريب يا مظلوم يا عطشان مخاض الله من تمسك بكم أمن من لجأ والتجأ إليكم. يا ليتنا فوزا عظيما. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وعملوا الصالحات أولئك هم خير البرية. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.
اللهم اغفر لنا وغفوركم بمصابنا وبحق الله الحسين، وجعلنا الله تعالى وإياكم من الطالبين لفضله بين يدي الإمام المنصور المؤيد المهدي من آل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
My dear brothers and sisters, thank you once again for having me. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be with all of you. I mentioned yesterday that inside of Insan, there are two aspects. There is a internal, balcony aspect, and there is a aspect of human beings, every human being, that relates to the external world, or a balcony aspect. And to be complete, Islam teaches us that these two have to match. And when I say they match, it's not necessarily that everything that is inside shows outside, or everything that is outside should be internalized necessarily. It is to say that the code of our practice, anything we has to have its basis on something that is rooted inside. If that does not occur, then that action has very little meaning, very little significance. You have to know why it is you're doing something. In society, I mentioned to you yesterday that laws are instituted, but that doesn't make people moral individuals. It doesn't teach people proper akhlaq or ethics or how to deal with each other. There are so many examples of this. Even today, let's take the example of our country, where just a few years ago we had the Black Lives Matter movement. And that Black Lives Matter movement, founded on true grievances, on systemic inequities that exist inside this country, people stood up, not just in terms of violence against Black people, but certainly due to the fact that there was injustice when it came to dealing with people of color in society. Whether that was related to work, whether it was related to school, whether it's related to anything in society. And you see that governments enact something called policy instruments. Policy instruments, without getting too deep into these sorts of technical aspects, are just things that governments can institute to make their constituents, make the people who live in a given society act in a particular manner. Maybe sometimes just to appease those people. And so just look in our country here, we have something called affirmative action. Affirmative action is essentially, keeping it very basic, is that some extra consideration is given to minority groups who maybe are being unfairly marginalized. They're not being considered in society. So they're being given a sort of consideration that is not being given to the majority, and they're being allowed to enter into institutions or organizations or given jobs based on this instrument. Now I ask you that when that is done, when that happens, does it actually create a feeling of brotherhood or sisterhood between the majority and the minority? Probably not, because if it did, then we wouldn't have Black Lives Matter today. Institutionalized or systemic racism wouldn't exist today. Yet you see what Islam does. The beauty of the religion of Islam is such that it not only describes how each insan has value in front of Allah, but that the only thing that differentiates one insan from another insan is the taqwa that they have inside.
hiding, what is deeply rooted inside of you. And completely and totally you'll see this in the action of the Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam. Just look at our imams. There's something very poignant, and maybe today we've not learned this, unfortunately. Where today, even in marriages, I perform a lot of marriages that come to me. Fortunately, I see a lot of divorces as well. But in those cases that arrive, unfortunately, people are still held on to the old thoughts that if I am Sayyid, I'm only going to marry a Sayyid. And it's not appropriate for a girl who comes from a Sayyid family to marry someone who is not a Sayyid. These are not Islamic tendencies. These are not Islamic standards to live by. Or that because you come from a certain ethnicity, you should not marry another ethnicity. Today, these are things that we should be moving past them. We should be rising above them. Why? Because we take the names of our imams and we say, Imam such and such, whether that's Imam Ali alayhi salam, Imam Hassan alayhi salam, down to Imam Askari and Imam al-Mahdi ajallahu ta'ala farajahu al-sharif. We will be sacrificed for them. Do we not? Yet each of these imams, who did they marry themselves? Who did they marry? 6 or 7 of our imams, their mothers were freed slaves. Not only freed slaves, but slaves from North Africa, from Maghreb, from what is today Morocco, or what is considered to be Tunis today, or Algeria today. Imagine, our imams, their mothers were freed slaves. And so what a legacy to teach us. And that's why the deen of Islam is very, very focused on fixing the outer world by first fixing what is inside. And that it must begin with reformation of inside to the outside. This is what we have to teach our children. And treat them as intelligent beings that our children have to eventually go out into the world. When they do go out into the world and whatever it is that they are going to face, the only recourse they have is to turn within and say, what has been sown inside of me is what is going to guide me to act in the appropriate manner. And believe me, it's not as simple as we think it might be. Because when it comes to legality, which I explained to you, you can enforce legality outside in the world with laws. Yes? I don't know, in Ohio, I'm sure, in North Carolina we do. You have red light cameras? Of course you have red light cameras. How many of you run red lights? I promise it's not recording. It's not recording, no one will know. Nobody runs red lights? Come on, everyone runs a red light here and there, a little bit orange. Everyone runs a red light here or there. Now let me ask this question. If you know there's a camera there on top, as you're approaching that yellow light that's about to turn red, and you know you're gonna run that red light, you see the camera sitting there. You speed up or you hit the brakes? You see the camera right in front of you. You hit the brakes, right? But you're driving on some country road, nobody's there, right? No red light camera on a country road in the middle of nowhere. You see that yellow light turning to red, what happens? There's no camera. You hit the gas, you go through, right? Nothing's gonna slow you down. So legality or the enforcement of laws is not a means by which you correct internal morality. It's not. And it is not so simple to say, yes, I already know what it means to be moral, what it means to be a good person or an ethical person. And I give this example sometimes to people. I don't know how many of you have heard of the trolley paradox. The trolley paradox is this scenario that you give to people out there. So you are at a trolley station, or a place where the trolley is running on the tracks. The trolley is moving forward. It comes to a place where the tracks split. One side going right, the other track going left, and there's a lever that causes the trolley to go either right or left. As the trolley is moving down the tracks, its brakes fail. The brakes fail and it's going at speed now. You're standing at the junction where it splits, and you can control which side it goes, right or left. It's going to go one way, it cannot stop. The brakes are broken, okay? So it's going to go right or left. Unfortunately, On the right side, there's one person standing, and he's working over there. And on the other side, there are 5 people standing, right? There are 5 people. The trolley is going to go down one side, and it's going to kill either that one guy or 5 guys on the other side. And you have to decide. Which one do you decide? You decide to pull the lever, and logic will say, right? Logically, we will say, kill the one and save the 5. Makes sense, no? Come on. And any human being, you'll say this, you'll pose this question to them, and you'll say, 1 on this side, 5 on the other, right? Now, let's complicate it a little bit. Okay? This guy on the one here, he's a family man, he's got 6 children. He's working to save them, to feed them. He has a wife and 6 children. The 5 on the other side, they're all single men, no families, unattached. Now who do you kill? Do you pull the lever and send the trolley down the left side? Which side do you send it? Let's say this on this one side is a Muslim and the 5 are non-Muslims. Which side do you send? Which side does your mind tell you to send? Your mind is sitting here trying to calculate, what should I do? What's the proper way to do? And God forbid, may never happen. Let's say that the 5 on this side are all strangers to you. This one is your own. What do you do? Now suddenly, no longer is morality is going to determine, your emotions are going to determine, right? Your emotions are going to control what you are going to do, and you will justify it ethically. Say, ethically, this was the right thing to do. And you will find an excuse. Even if it wasn't justified, you will justify it because your emotions will tell you this was the right thing to do. Was it not? We are caught in this paradox. And I'm giving you extreme examples, very extreme examples, which, inshallah, nobody ever has to face in life. But the fact of the matter is, we make these moral judgments all the time. Constantly we're making them. And what we don't do is rely on religion. We don't rely on the tenets of our faith. Now why? Why is that necessary? Because in the end, this was the legacy of Ahlul Bayt. You don't rely on your own opinion. You don't rely on your own analogy. You rely on the law that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instituted for you. Which means that Allah has a haqq on you. And it comes down to that. To everybody, it comes down to one thing. The haqq of Allah on you. When you do something, when you pray, when you fast, when you do amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy 'anil munkar, why are you doing it? Because Allah has a haqq. Allah has a right on you. And you have, first and foremost, to be obedient to Him. You must uphold what He's telling you. So you have to do it. Now let's say you don't understand. Let's say Allah says do such and such or do such and such, or commands you to do this, tells you not to do that, and you don't do it. And your excuse is, it doesn't make sense to me. Mentally, it doesn't make sense. So I'm not going to do it. On the day of judgment, when you stand in front of Allah, what answer are you going to do? Allah will say, why didn't you do what I commanded you to do? You'll say, I rationalized it, Ya Allah, but it didn't make sense to me. What is He going to do? He's going to say, you're going to get punished for the sin that you committed because I told you to obey me. I didn't try to tell you to try to understand. So why should we accept what Allah is telling us? Why is it that I should take blindly if I don't understand that God says do this and I should do it, even though I don't understand? And believe me, there are these aspects that we are struggling with in society. We struggle with this as believers. That I don't understand why Allah has made this law. It makes no sense to me why He has done it this way. But yet, Allah says, obey. أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم. Obey Allah. He says it clearly. Obey God. He doesn't say rationalize first and then obey. Make sense of it, then obey. Come to peace with it, come to terms with it, then obey. No, He said obey first. Whether you understand or don't understand is not your concern. Maybe you will come to a moment when you can understand, but chances are you will not. And so the answer of this is that it's the haqq of Allah upon us as our Creator. And you will say, what right does anyone have to tell us what to think, how to be moral, how to decide our lives? Why does Allah have that right? Well, one, because we didn't bring ourselves into existence. We didn't cause ourselves to occur into this world. Even we required our parents to bring us in and nurture us. They didn't come on their own. It was only because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here, that's why we came here. He has provided for us. Beyond that, this discussion can go long. But I'll give you one very simple example. You living here in Cincinnati, I living in Durham, North Carolina, each person living in their restricted conditions and their situation, wherever that may be, anywhere in the earth, do they know what somebody else is living like across the world in a different circumstance? Do they? That's why it's very easy for me to say, no, temporary marriage is a bad thing. It's not something anyone should be doing, even though Islam has allowed it. Maybe it's not something I should be doing, but how do I know it doesn't apply to somebody else's life? Right? We say, oh, how is it allowed that Islam permits a man to have 4 wives? And please, it's being recorded, so I will disclaim this right. I'm not advocating for a man to have 4 wives. I think Allah has made a man to have 1 wife. Okay, that's my personal position. Yeah, my wife is part of this. Allah has made us with a nature. My feeling is, personal feeling, 1 man, 1 woman, that's it. I have my wife, I feel happy. I'm content in my life. And any man who comes and says, oh no, I need to have a 2nd wife, a 3rd wife because I can't control my urges, yes? My question to them is, what's wrong with you that you can't control your urges? Allah made you an animal? And yes, indeed, no one's to say there's not an intrinsic nature inside of us that needs to be fulfilled. No one is questioning all of that. Even then, the permission of Allah or the law of Allah that allows a man to have 4 wives, to do temporary marriage, or etc., or any other thing, any other law that we consider to be distasteful, uncivilized, and that's how we look at these things. How do I, in my personal circumstance, know that it doesn't apply to somebody else? How do I know? How do I know that a Bedouin in the Sahara Desert doesn't need that law and that it wouldn't apply for him? Or somebody in one of the mountain ranges of Afghanistan, or in Iraq, or in Russia, or somewhere else? I don't know that. But here I am trying to make a judgment based on my own frame of the world, my understanding of the world, which is extremely limited, which is extremely narrow. And that's why Islam says, observe the haqq of Allah, because Allah is supreme. He knows everything, He sees everything, and He is just. He will never institute a law or allow something or deny something and it does not have a maslahah or something good in it for it. That is just the basic of it. So human beings in society, when we're cultivating inside and outside, we have to first adhere to the haqq of Allah. If we fail in observing and fulfilling the right of God upon us, we have failed everything. The second thing is a balance, my dears. I will keep it simple, inshallah. The second thing is a balance. It is observing the haqq of my own self and the haqq of others. This is balance. It is a seesaw. And this is not only the haqq of others, but the haqq of the environment around me, the haqq of everything that is in my physical life, in my physical surroundings, and what I consider to be my own rights, what I should consume and what I should know. It's a balance between that. So I'll give you an example. I will come home from work, I am tired, I believe I've worked a full day, I've earned a living for my family. It's my right to kick my legs up on my sofa, drink my cup of coffee, and watch my TV show quietly and no one should bother me. In the meantime, what have I done? I have taken my right, I've said I've fulfilled my responsibility, this is my haqq, but at the same time, what? I have ignored the haqq of somebody else. I have decided that I'm going to turn a blind eye to what other people are thinking. That's why, look at the example of Dar-e-Zehra and Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhim as-salam. How beautiful was their relationship. And people who come and they say that, oh, Islam teaches men to make women subservient and women have no status, they're just relegated to the home and this and that. Man does whatever he wants. This is not Islam. This is culture, this is tradition, it is a paternalistic system that has been implemented so people who have power can keep the power. People who have influence can keep the influence. Meanwhile, you see the relationship of Fatima Dar-e-Zehra and Amir al-Mu'minin. That the Rawi or the Hadith it describes, it's recorded, that when Amir al-Mu'minin would come into the house, she would be grinding with her hands. So much so that they even described that her hands at such a young age had become callous from grinding the grain with her bare hands. She would grind the grain, he would knead the dough, or he would stoke the fire of the stove to heat. She would prepare the food, he would sweep the floor. There are riwayat. He will mend the shoes. Not, oh, Ali ibn Abi Talib is outside working outside the house and she is cooking and cleaning, and then he comes and he kicks his legs up and says, who's going to serve? This is not Islam. And this is why when Islam talks to us about huquq, about rights, it describes very clearly that take your own rights, no question. Don't be a slave. You're not a slave to anybody other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are not. You are slave only to God, servant only to Allah. So uphold your rights, but at the same time, recognize that you have to balance it with the rights of somebody else. Not only the rights of somebody else, the minute you consume, the minute you eat and you devour, and I'm saying devour because that's what we do. We live in a consumer-friendly world. It's for consumerism, totally. And all we do is consume and devour. If we devour our right to drink water out of a plastic container, like this one right here, what is the right of the environment upon us to do with this? Is to recycle and not to throw it in the garbage and think that, oh, it's going to just magically disappear. Malak Jibreel is going to come down and he's going to take it with him, and there's a recycling center in the sky and he will recycle. Yes. No, there's no such thing. You know where it ends up? It ends up in the Pacific Ocean on an island of plastic that is the size of Texas. I don't know how many of you know this. There is an island of plastic the size of Texas floating in the Pacific Ocean today. Imagine, it's choking the life of the Pacific Ocean. It's destroying the world around us. It's destroying us, actually. One day we'll talk about it. Shit. Cameron and I talk about microplastics. But one day maybe we'll talk about microplastics, but that's a science talk, that's something else. So imagine what we are doing. And this is why there are problems, not only in our personal life, but in society. Because I am quick to take what I want, and I forget about somebody else. Not only that, because I see this other person to be a stranger. I don't see this person to be like him. Why do we look at someone else and don't consider them to be human? Today, what is happening in Gaza? What is happening in Palestine? What is happening in Palestine? What is happening in different places, in Sudan, in different places? I mentioned the name of the Rohingya Muslims. The Rohingya Muslims who've been treated so badly for decades, killed, their homes burned. I mean, we can't even describe. They have no home. They go from place to place on boats, rickety boats. Many of them die in the water. Why are they treated so badly? Why? Because somebody looks at them as if they are less than human. They dehumanize them. Yes? They look at them less. You see them as if they are what? A stranger. A stranger. And so you don't want to treat them like somebody who's familiar to you. You don't treat them like you're looking at yourself in the mirror. Strangely enough, we don't even look at ourselves that way. That's why we consume today everything. How many of you, if I were to tell you, 10 years, 15 years down the road, you can get something that will benefit you in your life versus taking it today? How many of you will wait 10 to 15 years? Nobody will do it. I guarantee you no one will do it. You will take it now. That's because what is in the future is strange to you. Let me tell you, I'll tell you a study. They did a study on some people. They did MRI scans of their brains. They showed them pictures of strangers, perfect strangers, people they didn't know. And they took the images of the brain. So they showed them the picture, they're taking the images of the brains, certain parts of the brain were lighting up. Then they showed them a quick picture of themselves. They took a picture of them, of the person themselves, and right there and then, same thing they did. They took the MRI, they scanned the brain, they looked at the image of the person right in front of them, their own self. What they noticed was, when they looked at the picture of the stranger, a different part of the brain lit up versus if they were looking at a picture of themselves. When you look at yourself, what happens? It's familiarity. You see yourself. You're familiar with yourself in the mirror as you look at yourself every day. You are there. You recognize yourself. Now they did something tricky. They took the pictures of these people, their own self, and they used that software that makes it older. I don't know if you've tried it. They've got these apps where they can take your picture and make you look 30 years old, 40 years old, make you an old person. They took the pictures of those same people and made them older by like 40 years. Made them very old. And then showed it to themselves. And again did the MRI. Guess what the images look like? The images look like they were looking at a stranger, not at themselves. They were looking at a picture of themselves, just looking older, that's all. But the image in the brain said what? That I'm looking at a stranger. I'm looking at somebody who's not familiar to me. Why do you think insan doesn't plan for the future? Because we're strangers to ourselves in the future. Because we don't think down the road. We don't think 20, 30, 40 years down the road. We think now. And I mentioned this yesterday, that everything we do is for now. Everything we do is for building this world now, not for later. And that's why Quran and Al-Bayt are stressing that have your vision on that last target. Don't think here. Avoid thinking here. And take your mind out of fantasy. Remove the fantasy from yourself. Imam Ali alayhi salatu wassalam, he says, he says, I fear two things for you. Two things I fear for you. He said, what ya Amir al-Mu'minin? He says, طول الأمل واتباع الهوى. Extended false hopes and after your wings. Imagine, extended false hopes, meaning you think something is coming that's not actually there, it's a mirage. Or you're not looking at the right target, you're not looking at the right goal. So, طول الأمل, meaning have extended false hopes, not open Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That will lead you astray. And imagine, today there's a phenomenon, I'll tell you another piece of science. There's a phenomenon called the lottery effect. How many of you have heard of the lottery effect? How many of you buy lottery tickets? Come on. Nobody? Good. Don't buy it. It's not allowed to buy lottery tickets. Buying the lottery tickets is not allowed. Not allowed. For the intent of winning the prize, it's not permissible. So, why do people buy lottery tickets? Do you know there is a higher likelihood of you getting struck by lightning than there is of you winning the lottery? Did you know that? It is. There's a 15,001 chance of you getting struck by lightning. There's more chance that you will get struck by lightning in your life than you'll actually win the lottery. Why do people buy the lottery? There's no person who goes and buys the lottery thinking, I'm going to win. You go buy the lottery, why? Because you have this dream inside of your mind, you get it, right? Like, oh my God. You sit there and you picture in your mind, they're going to call my numbers, and I look at them and say, I won. That's it. I don't have to work for the rest of my life. I'm a multi-millionaire. Yet you know what happens to even the people who win the lottery? Go look at them. Psychologically, they have lots and lots of problems. They're not generally very happy after winning the lottery. They face a lot of difficulties. So you see the nature of insan, what insan's nature is. And we become prey to this. We become prey to anything it is that we're chasing after or anything that activates our desires. That's why Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, "Man ashaqa shay'an a'sha basarah." He says, anyone who loves something, it makes their vision blind. It makes them blind. They cannot see. وَأَمْرَضَ قَلْبَهُ. It will make their heart sick. فَإِنَّهُ يَنْظُرُ بِعَيْنٍ غَيْرِ صَحِيحَةٍ. He says, this person who loves that thing, whatever it is, they are looking with eyes that are not proper. They don't see properly. وَيَسْمَعُ بِأُذُنٍ غَيْرِ سَمِيعَةٍ. They are listening with ears that don't actually hear what is being said to them. The love of that thing has blinded them, has made them deaf. قَدْ خَلَقَ الْهَوَى وَقَدْ خَلَقَ الشَّهَوَاتُ عَقْلَهُ. Look, he says their shahwat, their desires, their whims have pierced through their mind. Their mind is not thinking clearly. They're being controlled by their desires. And that's why Again, I keep coming to this point to you that Islam is emphasizing this concept of living in the world physically, interacting with the external world, but first cultivating what is inside, understanding what is deeply sort of manifesting inside of us. And that aspect of us has to be constantly worked on, fostered, cultivated, educated. It begins with knowledge. It begins with the acquisition of knowledge. It begins with knowing what it is that is haq and what it is that is batil. This, and I will come to this point now. This, my dear brothers and sisters, is the goal of Imam. It is the very mission of our Imam. The people, they ask, why do you have to follow 12 Imams? Rasulullah came and he went, and he's gone. He left the perfect message for us. The Holy Quran is sufficient. There's no need for 12 Imams. Some of our young people even come and ask, then why do we need to believe in 12 Imams who came and died and they're gone? They're not here in the present world. They don't tell us how to live. They can't benefit me much. So what answer should we give? The answer to these questions are not always easy. We're looking for a magic answer that will solve every problem. No, my dears. The answer lies in the search for the answer. You say, well, that's kind of a weird proposition to make. The answer lies in the search for the answer. What I mean is if someone just wants you to give them a quick solution to a problem, chances are that solution is not going to work. Or it may not hit the mark entirely. What you need to do, any human being who wants to find a course through life, who wants to improve their circumstances, who wants to solve a problem, is to search. You have to search. And you have to find that path. And that's why the A'imma al-Athhar are there. Not only because they point to the truth, to the haqq of Allah, the haqq of the Holy Quran, but by their way of life, they have shown how you should act. Not only internally, but externally. I'll give you an example. They say when Imam Rida alayhi salatu wassalam, he's taken up to Khurasan. He's taken by Mahmoud al-Abbas. He leaves Medina, he is brought up. They would try to bring him lots of lavish food and they try to corrupt him. The goal of Mahmoud was, I'm going to bring him in and I'm going to make him such that he will just fall in line with our way of doing things. And Mahmoud al-Abbasi had it different. Mahmoud al-Abbasi, if you look at the history, was struggling. Mahmoud al-Abbasi, what did he do? One, he was a Persian, his mother was Persian, father was Harun al-Rashid, so half Arab, half Persian. His brother, Amin, was all Arab. Harun al-Rashid, his father, and Arab mother. What happened between these two? They fought. Mahmoud, his soldiers, they surrounded Amin, the brother, and they killed him. Now he assumes the Khilafah. Mahmoud al-Abbasi has taken the Khilafah by killing his brother. Now imagine a big segment of the Muslim population is going to not accept him to be the proper Khalifa. They're going to say, you killed your brother. Not only that, look at how the nation was at that time. They still exist today. The Arabs who are there in Iraq, what are they going to say? They're going to say, this guy has a Persian mother. Why should we accept him? He killed his brother who was all Arab. This guy has a Persian mother. We're not going to be subject to a man who is our Khalifa, who is half Persian, half Arab only. So he had difficulty. On top of that, the Alawids, the descendants of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they were revolting in different parts of the Muslim world. They had stood up against the governors of Mahmud. So he was facing these challenges. So he thinks to himself, let me bring Ali ibn Musa from Medina. I'll force him to come all the way up into Persia and he will stay there with me. And I'm going to make him my deputy. And I'm going to bring him into a position of control and supremacy and leadership. And he will become like a Khalifa after me maybe. And because of this, I will solve all of these problems. Why? Because people will say, this is the descendant of Rasulullah. He is a grandson of Rasulullah. He is an Arab, etc. He has this status. The Shia will fall in line. The Alawis will fall in line once they see Ali ibn Musa. So he brings him up. Now look how devious he is. He brings him up through different places, a long route. He tells the escort, the soldiers who are bringing, that don't bring him through the regions where there are lots of Shia. bring him through areas where there are no Shia, because we don't want anyone to ask questions. So they bring Imam Rida all the way up into Persia. When he reaches there, he thinks to himself, I'm going to corrupt him. So what do? They sit him down. There's one recorded incident in which he's sitting. The attendant, he comes with a big platter of food. He gives a empty plate to Imam Rida alayhi salam. He says, go ahead, Ibn Rasulullah, whatever you want, your heart's desire, take it and eat. So crowd of people are sitting there, the courtiers, Ma'mun's counselors, advisors, all are sitting there. Imam Rida takes the plate, he takes this, he takes some of this, he takes some of this, he fills his plate, he takes a little bit, he grabs all. The people who are sitting all around the walls watching, this is the grandson of Rasulullah. He is the grandson of Ali and Fatima alayhi salam. They start to whisper and chatter amongst themselves. Like, what sort of a grandson of the Prophet is this? Look at how greedy and how much he is coveting this food. He's taking everything. A little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this. He's got so much greed inside of him to feed his desires. They're sitting there watching. Imam Rida fills the plate. He takes the plate. He calls the servant. Take this and go and give it to all the servants. Go and give this to all the servants. He does not need this. So, control of that one. We sometimes, my dears, let me say this. Haram is haram. Haram is haram. Don't go near it. Don't even look in its direction. Makruh is not haram. If you do it, you don't get a sin. There's no sin against you if you do makruh. It's best to avoid a makruh. But my dears, let me ask you this question. Should we sometimes even avoid those things that are halal to us? It's halal. Should we avoid it? Because maybe consuming it may not be good for you. Yes? I give this example all the time. Is eating brownies haram? Come on, eating brownies, I'm not talking about like hot brownies, regular brownies. No. No. Not haram. Yes, say a lot of things. People eat brownies. Eating brownies not haram. You can eat brownie. What if I'm good Shia, yes? I want to eat one brownie for each of my moms. So I eat 12 brownies. Yeah, man, I can't eat one for Imam Ali and then eat Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein. So I have to eat one for each, even if it's a little one. I'm going to eat 12 brownies. Yeah. Is that haram? Technically not haram. As long as there's no bottom brownie. No lard, no nothing. It's halal brownie. Okay? My relative made it for me. Good brownie, I ate those 12 brownies. Not necessarily haram, but should I have done that? Should I have done it? Probably. Same thing I go with the example of temporary marriage, or Allah allows a lot of things. That doesn't mean we should do them. Huh? Why? Because haram is haram. Stay away from it. Makruh, avoid it. For sure, try to avoid it. But even halal, you're doing halal and you're overindulging in halal. What's it doing? Opening the door to your desires. No. I mean, think about it. It's opening the door to your desires. It's opening and it's fulfilling everything and more inside of you. Hence, you see, even in the lives of Imam Ali, the most basic of food was there. Imam Ali, what does the Rawi say? That I came in, I sat in front of him, I saw him with a piece of bread that was so hard, he was breaking it on his lap with this. It was so hard. Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salatu wassalam. Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salatu. The piece of bread that is given by Imam al-Sajjad, imagine, is so hard that even the beggar has to give it down. You cannot do it. It's so hard. That's why when Mahmoud al-Abbasi, he comes to Imam Rida, he says, Ya Abul Hassan, you will become my Khalifa. You will become the deputy. You will succeed me. You will take over the Wali Imam. You will be the supervisor and overseer of this and overseer of that. He said, no, I will not do any of those things. I am not involved in any of those things. Do not involve me in it. You have compelled me to come here. You have forced me to come here. I have come. Do not expect me to do any of these things. He kept pushing him, kept pushing him, kept pushing him. He kept compelling him, threatening him, etc. Finally, Imam Rida, he says, you have compelled me, then I will put a condition for you. He says, what's that? He says, I will not give any judgments. I will not intercede. You will not send me out to deal with people's issues. You will not understand from the governmental purpose. If there's a rebellion, you do not send me out to deal with that rebellion. I will help people in my own personal capacity and share knowledge, which is what he did. But do not use me as one of your instruments. I will not give judgment. I will not do this. I will not do this. And after you die, I am not helping. He said it immediately. Look, why not just take the power? Why not just say, I'm going to take it? And I'm going to do with it what Allah commanded me to do. Maybe there's a lesson in this for us. From Imam Allah alayhi salatu. Maybe there is a message for us that even in the course of our lives, what we consume, what we take into our life, what we make a part of our life, what we make as tools in our life, is certainly going to influence what is inside of us. It will shape who we are from the inside, and as a result, it will change how we act externally. That is the awareness that the Vedic is teaching. That's why concepts of zohd, concepts of being restricted in how much we consume are very core to being Muslim. Yes, if Allah has given, we thank and we take and we eat and we drink. No one says no. But understand its influence and its effect on you because it will change who you are. And you never ever want to live a life that is counter to what Allah wants. You don't want to break the haqq of Allah. Ever, ever. You don't want to go against that. It's reported that Shah Zanan alayhi salam, the mother of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, she was brought as a prisoner of war, and he married her to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and she bore him Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. She was a princess. Her father, grandfather were kings. They were emperors of Persia. Imam Ali is reported once asked her, he said, you were near your grandfather, the Qaisar, the emperor. What did you learn from him? What did you learn? She said, I learned from my grandfather one very important lesson. That when Allah has decreed, when His amr comes to pass, when His decree, when His will comes to pass, anyone who goes against it will be humiliated. No. That's life. When Allah decides something, if you go against it, counter it in any way, you will be humiliated. That's the question we have to ask. Are we going against what Allah has ruled for us or those around us? And then she says, because anything after that is certain death. Anything after that is certain death. That's it. You're done. Once you've gone against the will of God, there's nothing left for you. You've gone against the will of the Supreme. And that's what you see. Why Imam Abi Abdullah was saying, every step of the way, he's calling people to his side, calling people to join him. I'm sure you've heard of Ubaydullah ibn Qurra al-Ju'fi. Ubaydullah ibn Qurra al-Ju'fi meets Imam Hussein on the way to Karbala. And he doesn't want to meet the Imam. Imam goes to him. Imam calls him, he doesn't come, Imam goes to him. After the pleasantries, the salam, etc., Imam says, come join me for the salvation of your life of the next world. Meet Allah, please, you will get success. This is my advice to you. Ubaydullah ibn Qurra al-Ju'fi, he says, if not Rasulullah, with all due respect, can I give you some advice? Imam, he said, yes, go. He says, I have a horse in my stable. I have one horse that is my favorite. It's the fastest horse I have, the most reliable horse. I will gift it to you. Take it and ride very far away from you. Imam Hussein, he says, let me say something back to you. He says, you take your own horse and ride it as far as you can from here. He says, because if you hear our calls for help when we say heaven now, and so on, and you don't answer, Allah will throw you headlong into Jannah. There were people who didn't listen, who didn't, even until the last day, on the day of Ashura, when Imam Hussein alayhi salam stood there. What did he say? Ayyuhan nas ansibuni man ana. O people, he told the enemy soldiers, ask yourselves, who am I? Who am I? Which family do I come from? Who was my father? Who was my mother? Who was my grandfather? My grandmother. انسبوني منحا ثم ارجعوا إلى أنفسكم فعاتبوها هل يحل عليكم قتلي وانتهاك حرمتي? Go back and question yourselves, scold yourselves. Is it allowed for you, is it allowed for you to spill my blood? To defile and violate the sanctity of my family, of those who are with me? ألست ابن بنت نبيكم? Am I not the son of the daughter of your prophet? Is there any other son of a prophet on this earth? Imam Hussein gave the hujjah so that in the end there's no excuse that we went against the will of Allah. We didn't know. No, we know. And that is God. But my dears, the stand of Imam Hussein is the very reminder in our lives that don't take for granted what you have inside and how you act outside. Don't take it for granted. Don't walk through life like you are sleeping. Don't walk through life on autopilot. Don't walk through life like you are hypnotized. Because eventually you will wake up. And that's why the riwayah is reported. What does it say? People are sleeping. When they die, they wake up. Because suddenly they see the truth. We cannot be that. It's reported. And these are the nights. Tomorrow is the day of Ashura. Tomorrow is the day of Abani. We are all in Karbala tomorrow. We are all at the grave of Abi Abdullah ibn Hussein alayhi salam. But Ali, he says that when the Da'an, when the caravan leaves Medina and makes its way towards Mecca, that a man from Kufa had come to Medina and he wanted to speak to Imam Hussein, but Imam Hussein was busy. So he came to where Imam Hussein lived and he saw people had gathered. He saw somebody sitting outside of the door of the home of Imam Hussein. When he saw this, he described this Kufi man. He says, I saw a young man come out, with him were two women older than him, fully covered. I asked, I said, who is this? Someone near me. The man, he says, don't you know? He says, no, I'm a stranger. I'm from Kufa. I don't know who these people are. He says, that is Ali al-Akbar, Ali ibn Hussein. The two women are his aunts, the sister of al-Hussein, Zainab al-Kubra and Kulthum, or Zainab al-Sughra. He says, I saw them, two little girls walking up, coming out. Then I saw another young man coming out, who his face was like the moon. His face shined like the moon. He asked, I said, who is this? He said, this is Abu al-Fadl Abbas. Abbas ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. I saw others come. This caravan gets together and it goes to Mecca and spends weeks in Mecca until the 8th of Dhul Hijjah when it's ready to go. When the time comes to leave Mecca, he said, Abdullah ibn Abbas, he comes to Imam Hussein and he says, Ya Rasulullah, why are you going? Why are you leaving? Why are you going towards Iraq, where the people, they have turned their backs, they betrayed your brother, your father before him? Imam Hussein, he says, this is a task that has been placed upon me, and that I have been called for this purpose. Abdullah ibn Abbas, he says to Imam Hussein, Ya Rasulullah, okay, you must go. Why are you taking your sisters and your daughters? They say in that moment that Ali, he reports and say that Zainab was standing there. She looks at Abdullah ibn Abbas, she says, Ya ibn Abbas, da'ana wa akhina, nahya bihayatihi wa namutu bimawtihi. She says to him, oh Ibn Abbas, why are you getting in the middle of this? Leave us be so we can accompany our brother, so that we can live as long as he is alive. And we can die this death. That if he is to die, we don't want to live anymore. The same Zainab does not leave the side of him. She travels with him undeterred until she reaches Karbala. And in Karbala, on the day of Ashura, Dar-e-Zehra says that when all of the Sahaba of Imam Hussein are martyred, when all the Banu Hashim, the news of the family of Rasulullah are martyred, Ali ibn Akbar, Qasim ibn Hassan, Abdullah ibn Muslim ibn Aqil, and on, so many of them, 17 of them, all martyred. Abul Fadl Abbas, the body is lying near the Alqan, near the river. His three brothers, their bodies are lying on the river. Now, Abi Abdullah Hussein comes. And then Rawi, he says, وقال أبو عبد الله الحسين من يقدم لي جوادي وأنا ابن رسول الله, who is going to bring me my horse, and I am the son of Rasulullah. Nobody answers. He says, من يقدم لي جوادي وأنا ابن أمير المؤمنين, من يقدم لي جوادي وأنا ابن فاطمة الزهراء, who will bring for me my horse, and I am the son of Fatima al-Zahra. The flap of the tent, it opens. The sister, she comes out. She says, Ya Akhi, Ya Hussein, Ya Nur Ain, Jarahta qalbi liman tunadi. My brother, Ya Hussein, you have burnt my heart. Who are you calling? No one is left in these tents. Sayyida Zainab, she comes out of the tent. Imam Hussein starts to bid her farewell. When Fatima Zainab al-Kubra, she says, Ya Akhi, Ya Hussein, li ilayka talatat talabat. My brother Hussein, I have 3 requests for you. Fulfill them for me before you go. Imam Hussein, he says, tell me, what are those requests? Sayyida Zainab, she says, أن تدعو الله أن يعينني على تحمل رزاياك وتنفيذ وصاياك. My brother Hussein, pray for the strength to bear the loss of you when you are gone, and that I have the strength to fulfill the task placed upon. أما الطلبة الثانية, as for the second request, إنك قادم إلى جدي وأمي وأبي وأخي فأقرأهم عني السلام. You are going to see our grandfather Rasulullah. You are going to meet our mother, our father and brother. Give them my salam because you will see them before I do. وأما الطلبة الثالثة, as for the third request, اكشف لي عن نحرك وصدرك. Open your shirt for me, O Hussein. Let me see your neck and your chest. Imam Hussein, he says, Ya Ukhayya ya Zainab, why do you want me to reveal my chest and my neck? She says to him, my brother Ya Hussein, do you remember when our mother Fatima was on her deathbed? She called me close to her when nobody else was present. She said something to me that I have remembered to this day. She said to me, Ya Bunayya ya Zainab, إذا جاء أخوك لوداعكم. If he comes on that day to bid farewell to you, then O Zainab, شميه لي في صدره وقبليه لي في نحره. Smell the fragrance of his chest,
Kiss him for me on his neck. Imam Hussein opens the shirt. Sayyida Zainab smells the fragrance of the chest. Indeed, this is where the spears are going to strike. She kisses the neck of Al-Hussein, where the swords are going to strike. She turns towards Medina and she says, Ya Ummah, لقد نفذت الوصية وأديت الأمانة. My mother, I fulfilled what you told me. The prisoners are taken to Kufa and to Sham. Until finally Yazid La'natullahi alayh releases them, and the Qafila finally, after being released from Sham, towards Medina, stopping in Karbala. The Rawi says, وكأني بسيدتي ومولاتي زينب الكبرى وهم نزلوا في أرض كربلاء يوم الأربعين. They have reached finally the land of Karbala. Each one is looking for the grave of her lovely wife. Layla is going to the grave of Ali and Akbar. Farwa Ramla is the grave of Qasim. Rabab is on the grave of Ali and Nasr. Each one on the grave of her loved one. But the eye of Zainab al-Kubra is only on the grave of Rabbi Abdullah al-Hussein. سقطت على قبر أخيها الحسين ونادى يا حسين جبرك نوي يا حسين جبرك أنا في اللحد وتمدد بجنبك. My brother, your grave if it were to open, call me inside and let me be there with you. لا تنام خويا يا حسين لا تنام. اقعد ترى جيتك من الشام. My brother, get up and see your sisters and your mistress. 40 days have gone by. I have returned my brother. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا على محمد أيام غد ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. يا حسين 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 घर से बाहर बिना आने वाली आई बाजारों में दुनिया को सिखाने वाली आई बाजारों में ज़ना। जिसने बाबा से छुड़ाए थे कई बार असीर, जिसने बाबा से छुड़ाए थे कई बार असीर, कैदी आजाद कराने वाली, कैदी आजाद कराने वाली आई बाजारों में ज़ना।
सिखाने वाली आई बाजारों में सहना
से उठा लाई अब्बास के बाद
जद्दे खैमों से उठा लाई अब्बास के बाद
अलिया बेट को बचाने वाली
अलिया बेट को बचाने वाली आई बाजारों में सहना पर्दा दुनिया को सिखाने वाली आई बाजारों में सहना
की खातिर ये बीबी सालार बनी
दीन की खातिर ये बीबी सालार बनी
बन के अब्बास दिखाने वाली
बन के अब्बास दिखाने वाली आई बाजारों में सहना पर्दा दुनिया को सिखाने वाली आई बाजारों में सहना
अपने सीने पे सकीना को जानों में
अपने सीने पे सकीना को जिंदानों में
बाद भाई के सुलाने वाली
बाद भाई के सुलाने वाली आई बाजारों में सहना पर्दा दुनिया को सिखाने वाली आई बाजारों में सहना
नंगे सर पर की रही खुद पे बारों में
नगे सर पर दी रही खुतबे बाजारों में
हसरे दुश्मन को हिलाने वाली
हसरे दुश्मन को हिलाने वाली आई बाजारों में सहना पर्दा दुनिया को सिखाने वाली आई बाजारों में सहना
घर से बाहर भी न आने वाली
घर से बाहर भी न आने वाली आई बाजारों में सहना पर्दा दुनिया को सिखाने वाली आई बाजारों में सहना
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein.
याद में ज़ैनब हूँ मेरे सर पे
रिदा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सरजाद में ज़ैनब हूँ मेरे सर पे रिदा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा हमारे खूफियों का मेरे चलने की जा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सरजाद में ज़ैनब हूँ मेरे सर पे रिदा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सरजाद में ज़ैनब हूँ मेरे सर पे रिदा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा
हमारे खूफियों का मेरे चलने की
जा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सरजाद में ज़ैनब हूँ मेरे सर पे रिदा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा
मेरे सर से बारिश चादर पल में नबी दादी फिर बारी गई दर पर जाऊंगा मुझको और मेरी दुआ कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सजाद में ज़ैनब हूँ मेरे सर पे रिदा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सजाद में ज़ैनब हूँ मेरे सर पे रिदा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सजाद मेरे दिल मेरे दर्द सताता है निकाले से जब खातिर पे आता है मेरा बुला देखे कमरे से बड़ा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सजाद में ज़ैनब हूँ मेरे सर पे रिदा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सजाद में ज़ैनब हूँ मेरे सर पे रिदा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सजाद चलूं कैसे लागूं है तमाशाई याद आता है रहने के अब्बास मेरा भाई याद करूं मुझसे अब तेरे सिवा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सजाद में ज़ैनब हूँ मेरे सर पे रिदा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सजाद में ज़ैनब हूँ मेरे सर पे रिदा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा मालूम है आदा को माजी की बहन हूँ मैं बेकस है वो बाजी बंदे रस्म हूँ मैं यादा वफा इसकी जब पास रहा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सजाद में ज़ैनब हूँ मेरे सर पे रिदा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सजाद में ज़ैनब हूँ मेरे सर पे रिदा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सजाद में ज़ैनब हूँ मेरे सर पे रिदा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सजाद तेरी हालत देखी नहीं जाती है वरना मुझे देखे ये बात सुनाती है सजाद तेरी जगहों में चला कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सजाद में ज़ैनब हूँ मेरे सर पे रिदा कोई नहीं बाजार जफा सजाद में ज़ैनब हूँ मेरे सर पे रिदा बाजार जफा
اللهم صل على محمد